Learning and the road to mastery is very rarely linear, meaning you don't see improvements happen in a straight line like this. Very, very rarely. In the early days, there can be beginner's gains where you're like making progress every single day. But after a period of time, you'll notice that there's something more like a step ladder to learning. Okay, so there will be times when you feel like you're not making any progress at all. There's this like plateau where a few weeks, a month goes by, maybe a few months if you're more advanced, and it's like, oh, not much is happening right now. And then you wake up one day and all of this new information has come online and you make this rapid increase in learning over the course of a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long it is, it depends. And then there's another plateau. And this is a lot more what the journey to mastery looks like. We used to use an analogy in the old days, like the EGTX days. Some players will remember this analogy. I called it filling the cups, okay? Making progress and the journey to mastering a skill is sort of like filling a series of cups. Each cup is larger than the last one, and each day you're making drops into a cup. Just drop by drop by drop. One workout, drop. One lifting session, drop. One meditation session, drop. And one drop at a time, you're filling a cup until suddenly, and if we're looking at the cup at eye level, we're not actually seeing any water, right? We're not seeing any, it's like, okay, I'm filling this thing, but I don't know what's happening. It seems like I'm putting in work. I don't know how much better I'm getting. And then suddenly the water reaches the level of the cup and it overflows. And you get all of this result. And once you've overflowed one cup, the next cup takes its place and you begin doing one drop at a time, one drop at a time, one drop at a time. And now you're like, oh, I was making all that progress. The last cup overflowed. Why am I not seeing that same progress again? Well, this is a bigger cup and you've got to one drop at a time, fill it up, fill it up, fill it up until finally, when you're not sure if anything's happening, there's a stretch of time where you're putting in work and, oh, I don't know, then it overflows. And the further along the road to mastery you go, the longer the plateaus are because the bigger the cups are that you have to fill. But the bigger the cup is, the bigger the overflow and the bigger the leap in development that comes ultimately. So in the beginning, you're filling these tiny little cups and they're overflowing one day after the next. Over time, those results seem to slow, but it's really just a bigger cup that's being filled. And finally, once that overflows, you see these big spikes in performance. And again, what I said was a step ladder. Learning is not linear. If you expect this, you're going to be frustrated and a lot of players are going to give up. If you understand that it's just one drop at a time, I don't know when the results are going to come, but eventually they will come. Before you know it, years will have gone by and you will have attained real, genuine mastery of a skill. And I still remember one of my early meditation and Qigong teachers, his name's Bruce Francis. I was living in Maui for a time and I was training in person with Bruce, and we're learning this form of standing meditation, which was quite difficult. It is quite difficult, but it was especially difficult for me at the time. I found it very physically taxing, and my knees would hurt, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and my body's all tight. And one day I was especially frustrated, and I remember Bruce saying something to me that I'll never forget. He goes, this standing practice really separates those who are serious from those who aren't. Because for a long time, it won't feel like you have a hope at learning this thing. And maybe a year or 2 years will go by and you have no idea if you're getting any better. But 2 years from today, if you do it every single day consistently, you will wake up and suddenly you will be able to do it effortlessly. And you will be fundamentally changed when that happens. And I was like, oh, right. Okay. I can totally get on board with that. Of course, I spent 10 years mastering jump shooting is one thing that I feel like I genuinely mastered. I didn't master the game of basketball, but jump shooting I did. And because I had that sort of background of knowing what that feels like, I just set out on the road to mastering that standing form. And I won't say that I mastered it, but I will say that after a few years of consistent practice, there was a time when I woke up and I was just doing it. And my body was strong and open and the energy was moving smoothly through my body. And I was like, Bruce was right. And if you approach your learning and your skill development and your mastery, ultimately, of the game of basketball in that way, not expecting these results constantly, just forget all about the results and just put one drop in at a time. Practice what we spoke about here. Focus your mind on what you're doing. Be as present as you can possibly be during every single moment that you spend on this. Incorporate the spontaneous pauses. Give yourself white space after training. Jump in the cold shower for 3 minutes after you are... I'm not saying, there's a caveat that's coming to mind here. You don't have to take a cold shower after every single micro practice. So if you do one-hand form shooting 5 times a day, don't take a cold shower after every single one. That's not necessarily, just do it after your big workouts. That just came to mind, sorry, not to get off track. Incorporating the spontaneous pauses, the white space after sessions, the first and final hour of the day, really being careful with what you put into your mind, doing the cold exposure, the 85% rule, not trying to learn too many things at once, focusing on one thing in addition to your regular routine. And then once that's online, then introducing a new thing, and really only doing micro practice and frequency for one thing at a time is a good idea. And then just take this approach of consistently putting drops in the cup and not thinking about, has it overflowed yet, but have I put a drop in today? And as long as a drop goes in, doesn't matter if it's overflowed, because that's eventually going to happen as a result of putting drops in. All that matters is the drops. Okay. So take that analogy to heart. And I will finish this up by saying that those who are ultimately successful in this game, and I've seen so many players over the past, it's been 12 years now since the first online training program I ever released dropped. So we've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of players come through these programs and, with varying degrees of success, frankly, players who do a ton of work and get a ton of result and see like incredible things happen in their basketball career. And then players who kind of fizzle out and the training just doesn't take and it just doesn't quite happen for them. And one of the critical differences between the two are the players who fizzle out and don't really quite ever get the results that they're looking for, even if they're working hard, and those who are super successful. Is that the players who don't get the result think in terms of weeks and months. The players who are super successful in the long term are thinking in terms of years and decades. They're playing the long game, and they're applying this road to mastery as a multi-year project. So that's my advice to you, is whatever skill that you're developing, think of it in terms of years and potentially even decades. Hopefully, if all goes well in your basketball career, your game is going to be a multi-decade project. And if you keep on putting drops in the cup for decades, mastery is an inevitable result. It would be unreasonable for you not to be successful. Hey, it's Taylor. I hope you enjoyed this clip. And if you'd like to watch the full-length talk, we'll have the title and/or link for you in the description so that you can check it out there. And as always, if you'd like to go even deeper, the best place to do that is in our free masterclass over at deepgame.com, which I believe will be the most powerful hour of basketball learning of your life. I hope we see you there.